Hello and welcome to taik18. Last week, I made a post on LinkedIn, the sneak peek of this video about how we can make use of these error bars and other fine tuning of that so that we can compare between two categories. Here, as an example, we are comparing the Canada and United Kingdom and what is the difference between the sales for the year 2012. So similarly, we can also make any changes to this. So if we want to compare Australia and Canada, so you can see there is a dip of 85% here. And if we want to compare Australia versus United States, there is an dip also on 32% of that. So how can we do that? Basically, we need to have four things here. We can make use of that. So the first thing what we need here is, as we are using the x-axis to be the sales territory, so we need to have a two sales territory tables. One is we are using it here on this visual. Another is we are using it for this visual, right? So one we are using it on the slicer, which is basically the default one, which we have the relationship model built in inside to this report. As you can see it on this one as well, we are using the dim sales territory here. And here the slicer is actually coming up from a different table, which is basically dim sales territory DAX table. So we can duplicate the table in multiple ways. We can also do it in Power Query and also using DAX. So here in this case, I use the DAX function here. So clicking on this one, as you can see on the top, I'm using this sales territory underscore DAX and equal to dim sales territory. This will actually make the replica of the same table. That's it. So here we have a dim sales territory, which is showing up the value here. And here, if I go to this one, dim sales territory DAX, this is also showing up here. This is what we are looking up here. All right. So the next thing here is, if I go back to this one, first of all, we need to add the sales territory on the x-axis. And also we need to add two different measures here. And most importantly, I'm not using the error bars. I'm using the error bars, but actually I'm using another chart, which is here you can see I'm using the line and clustered column chart. So this is the column chart which also we need to use in order to work out on this one. So I use the x-axis here to be dim sales territory, which is the main table. And the y-axis, I'm using the internet sale, which is the usual internet sale, which I refer to here in all most of my videos. Here we have internet sales, which is nothing but sum of fact internet sales table, sum of sales amount. That's it. And next here, I also added the x-axis to be the sales territory. But here I just want to highlight one thing is like you need to sort this x-axis by sales territory and ascending order. Then only this logic will work. If you are sorting it by like internet sales, by default, it will be in most of the starting of the report, then this will not work as expected. So we need to sort this by ascending order and by the x-axis, which is the sales territory here. All right, the next thing here, we need to use the two different measures, which is I'm using one in columns and another is I'm using it in the line. So the column which I'm using up here is the regular, which is sales internet sales. And here for the line, I'm using a different measure, which is actually coming up without interaction line. So I'm using up here WO, and there are many other measures here. We'll just focus on the necessary one because some of them are for testing purpose. So this is I'm using up here without interaction line. Yeah, this is the one. So if I close these things in order to avoid distraction. So let's focus on here. So I have it here, internet sales all selected without interaction line. Yeah, this is the one which I used here. So what I'm just taking up here, I'm taking the minimum and maximum of the selection from the slicer pane. Because as already mentioned, the slicer is coming from a different one and this x-axis is coming from a different table. So I'm picking up the value from the slicer, which is the sales territory. The reason for this is if we're using the same table, like here the sales territory table itself, then if you filter something on the slicer, then it's also going to filter on the chart here. The other option is we can use edit interaction, but if you do so, then this formula logic will not work. And that is the reason I'm using a separate table for that. Yeah, so I'm taking the minimum and maximum value here as this is starting by ascending order. So here in this case, the minimum is Australia and maximum is United States. But if I change it here, like for if I want to compare Canada and then Germany, for example, then here the C comes to be the minimum and the Germany comes to be the Canada is the minimum and Germany is the maximum sales here. So if I open up the measure again, yeah, this is the one. So here this will pick up the value of Canada and this will pick up the value of Germany here. And I'm using the return statement here. If so, here I'm using the if statement, selected value of the main dim sales territory table, column name of country is greater than or equal to minimum of the selection and less than or equal to maximum of the selection. If this is between these two, then I want this calculation to happen. If I use the equal to symbol, then this will not work. The reason is because it's just picking up the exact same two values. So I'm just using the less than or equal to and greater than or equal to so that it can be as an in between here. So this will take the value from Canada to Germany. It also considers the France as well. And that is the reason here. And then I'm using the calculate of the internet sale, which is the regular one. And I'm using the all sales territory from this one, which is x-axis. I'm filtering out everything because it will just go one by one. And then I'm using dim sales territory in these two things here. So usually what is happening here is it is actually taking the internet sales amount. If I use the regular sales amount itself, and let me show you here by adding another graph here. So if I add a new graph, so let's go to this one, new visual on this page. And here I'd like to add the internet sales as x-axis and internet sales also on the y-axis. Okay, now you can see one dot here, which is the x-axis here, I mean y-axis. And now if I add the dim sales territory country here, and this is, you can see it here, it's actually going one by each and everything here. So this is for Australia, both the values are showing up the same way, and this is for United States and this for UK. It is sorting out by descending order, so I can just click here and sort axis by sales territory, and this has to be by ascending order. This is how you need to do. But here you can see the line is actually going up and down based on the value here. And that is the reason I'm actually filtering it out here on my visual, this measure. So first of all, for now, let's forget about this thing. If you just focus on this particular part, calculate internet sales, that is fine. And I'm reviewing everything on the dim sales territory table, which is on the x-axis here. And then I'm using the dim sales territory country in only these things here. So this is going to be part of from this and this value. As I'm removing every filter here and it's considering only these two values. So it means it will just add up these two values. For now, here I'm selected here the Canada and Germany. This is going to add only two values, which is the Germany and Canada value. So if I close this one and then if I just minimize this one, which is the new one. Okay. And if I just mouse over here, I can see the value of showing up here, which is 916,26251. This is actually adding up these two values here. If I open up the calculator now, so basically we are comparing the Canada and Germany. The Canada value is 307605 plus 608658. And here if I mouse over on the line, it's showing up 916262, which is around of here 263. That is the reason it is showing up the value here. If I go back to the measure again, so internet sale, I'm removing every filter and I'm just adding, telling this to add only these two values, which is the selection of these two values, the minimum and maximum. Here it is Canada and Germany. And if there is something, then this is the value which is showing up here for now. And now the reason why I'm using if selected statement here, because if I not use this one, then it's going to show the line for every places here. So let's copy and paste this visual, or else if I just make a comment here. All right. So this is the calculate statement. So we also need this one, not this one. Correct. All right. If I do so, this is only going to be calculate one. And you see the line which is showing up here is going to show every places. Yeah, now you see it has expanded from Australia to United States, but actually we need it to be within the selected frame. So that's the reason I'm using the if statement here. So if the selected value is between this range, then only I want this to show. If it is outside of this range, then I want this to show as a blank value. So blank value nothing is not going to show up here on the visual, and that's the reason it's only showing up the selected range. So now we have this line value. So that's we have clarity here. So if I go to this visual and turn off the error bars for now, just for you to understand how this works. If I select the internet sales and then turn this off, yeah. Now this is how it will look like. So forget about the 97% which is green here. We'll talk about that later. But if I just turn off the error bar, now you see the plain line and column chart which is showing up here. We can see the value here. We can also see the line value here. And now we have two measures here. One is on the x-axis, another is the line and the column one. So here on the format pane of this visual, we need to now come to this error bar. In the error bar, we actually need to select the series here. The series we have to select here is the internet sales. By default, it will be show up 2 here because we are using two different measures here. But here we are just focusing on internet sale. We need to click on internet sale and then we need to enable this one. So once you do so, it will give you two options here in the error bar. We want to go it by field or by percentage here. So here I want to go by field here. And when you select that, then we'll have two different options, upper bound and lower bound. So here I selected here as an upper bound alone, not the lower one. And the relationship to the measure is absolute, not the relative one, because it will be go up and down automatically. So here I have a different measure. You can see internet sales all selected without interaction error bar here. So the error bar which is showing up here, it actually matching exactly to the point of the line here. So that is the main challenge here. So that's the reason I'm using another measure here in that case. So that's the third step now. The first two we have discussed and this is the third one. So if I open up the third measure, which is here. Yeah, let me format all this. Don't worry about that. I will show you, I will tell you one by one here. All right, so here what I'm taking up here first is the last non-blank and the first non-blank value. So I'm using the calculate function and taking the value of last non-blank from the dim sales territory country of the internet sales. And then I'm using this here all selected from the sales territory column. By doing that, what will happen here, we'll just get value name from this one. So if I just copy this particular measure, and then if I create a new measure, here, new measure. All right, this is a test measure. So here it is showing up here the Germany value. So this particular thing, we are using the calculate last non-blank DAX function from the dim sales territory country, which is from the second table, and internet sales value are all selected from this one. So this slicer I'm just picking up here. From this slicer, which I'm taking up here, Canada and Germany, I'm taking the last non-blank value. In that case, it is giving me answer of the Germany here. Similarly, I'm using the first non-blank value for the second one, which is I want to take the name, which is the Canada here. So here this will give me the answer of Germany, and here this will give me the answer of Canada here. All right, the next I'm using up here where selected country of maximum of each and everything here. The reason is I'm just want to pick up here as this will go one by one. So I just want to pick the value of it here. So first of all, this will go from Canada and then this will go to France and then this will go to Germany. So I'm now in the return, I'm using the switch statement here, switch true. If the selected country, which is Canada, equal to the first non-blank value, which is also the Canada, then I want the value to be show up here, which is calculate internet sales of all dim sales. This is actually the same thing which we are used for the calculation of the line, so that we are getting the same value here. So we're getting the value of calculate internet sales. All I'm removing everything. I'm just filtering the value of last non-blank and first non-blank here. In that case here, Canada plus Germany here. So that's the reason it is just pointing out to the same point where the line starts here. So this is where here. And then I'm using the second one, which is if selected country is equal to the last non-blank value, which is the Germany here. In that case, I'm using the same formula here. And if both of them are not the one, then I want this to be shown as a blank here. And that's the reason it is showing up here only on these two part here. If it is not, then by default, it will show up for everywhere. So if I open up this one, which is this visual, and go to the format pane and just turn on the error bars for the internet sales here. Internet sales, enable the internet sales. And if I add up anything here on this part, like for example, I'd like to add the internet sales here. Yeah, internet sales. So this is not showing up anything here. As I can see it here, you can see the bars here. Basically, there are slight bars which is showing up here. That's actually the one. So if I just change this to be relative, now you will be able to see the bars now. Technically, what I want to tell you here, by default, it will become for everything which is on the x-axis. And the additional measure which we created here is basically for to show only on these 2 points, which is the first and last selection. And rest everything it has to show blank here. And that's the reason it is showing a blank here. All right, so we have now find out x and y axis. So let me control Z. Now the last thing here is how we need to point this out, then value here. So the value actually I'm not taking up from the error bar. The error bar is only to just match it to the line here. That's the only reason. But for the value which is showing up here 97.87 and also the up arrow, this actually comes from the data labels. So on the format pane, we have the data label, and here we need to select the second option, which is internet cell without, because that's actually the line. So I want to show the value on the line, not on the column here. That's the reason we need to select the line measure here. And once I selected here, we don't need to use the option value here. We have to use the detail section here. Because if you use value here, then it's going to affect on everything. And we don't have any customization option here to do that. And because of that, I'm using this here, the detail section, so that we can also add customize to this one, which is an additional measure here. Internet sales variance country label without, which I'm using up here. And then this is the one, right? This is another measure. So don't worry about that. If it is too big, then I will just make it smaller here. All right. So here, if we go one by one, here also the same thing. I'm using the first and last non-blank value. And then I'm taking the value here. So calculate internet sales, dim sales territory, and this is the country. We can also use the last non-blank value here in that case. But here the problem is we are using a different table. So that's the reason I'm taking the value from this last non-blank from the duplicate table and using this as a parameter for the another table to filter the sales value. And that's the reason here. So we are getting up here the name of first and last and the value of first and last here. And doing the difference between the first and last minus first, and so that we can get the difference value here. And then in order to show the value here as a kind of percentage and this symbol, we are customizing here. So different percentage here. If the difference value, which is the last minus first, is greater than 0, then we have to show it in positive. So in that case, I'm using the divide function, difference divided by first non-blank value and into 100, which is the 2-digit of rounding up the value. And then I'm using this symbol here. So percentage, we can get it from a keyboard, and this arrow symbol I used here, Windows and then dot key. To press that, then it will open up this window. And from here, you can use the up arrow and then you can select from up arrow here. That's how I did here. And similarly, if it is less than 0, then we have to use the round again, divide everything the same formula. Only difference is here, the down arrow. All right. So now the return I'm using up here, if internet sales is equal to last non-blank value, then I want to show only this one, else it has to show blank. So by default, if you enable this one, then this will show up for Canada, France, and Germany, 3 of them. But I just want to show it only on the last part of the selection, which is here in the Germany in this case. And because of that, I'm using this measure, which is at the end, I'm using internet sale is equal to last non-blank value, which is equal to the Germany value. Then only this will show the difference percentage, or else it will just show the blank value here. So these are the little bit fine tuning which you need to do it here in the DAX in order to get the desired result. This is how cool, right? So we are getting up this value now. Now the last part, which is the color changing here. So the color changing is also interesting here. I will just go through quickly here. All right. Which is if I go to this one, not this one, to this same format pane, and here we have a color option. So if you click on FX icon, then it will open up this window. Here we need to select the rules, and in the rules we need to use another measure which I used here, which is actually similar to the one which we are used for the data label. But the difference here, these two is in the data label we customize here as per our requirement to display, which is we are adding up the text of the percentage symbol and up and down arrow. Whereas the other one which I used only for the difference value, which is showing up here, right? The difference, it's actually the same calculations. I'm just returning the difference value here. That measure I'm calling up here on this format option. So based on this measure, if the value is greater than 0, then and less than 100%, it has to be percentage or number. It doesn't matter. Right now it is in number itself, so we need to have this in number. So if it is greater than 0 and 100%, we have to use here as the maximum in that case. And here, if we just remove this one, then it will be minimum here. So 0 to maximum, it should be green, and minus whatever it is, and until the 0, it has to be red here. So if that case, if I click on OK, then this will show us the number in the red or blue, red or green color here. All right, so these are the things. So if I just change here now France and then Germany, now we'll see the minus 8%, which is in red now, and Australia, which is correct. And if I select any other year, for example, Canada and France, we'll see this value here. But what will happen if you select multiple things here? Then in that case, if you see, it is just adding up the first and last, because we use the first non-blank and the last non-blank DAX. That's the reason it is showing up here for the first and the last value within this range here. All right, so hope you got the clarity about how this can be achieved using this tax and other few alternative of this one. But not to forget about the 2%, which I have get the inspiration from that. So I will show you here on my screen. All right, I got the inspiration from these two members of the community, which is Sandeep Chabra. Hope you are aware of him because of his awesome work doing on the Goodly. And then he got the inspiration from this person, which is Gusto Dudek, and he has also done an amazing job on the UI part. So thank you so much for helping the community for you guys. If you enjoyed this video, hit the big like button and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed to my channel. If you have any queries and feedback, let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. Keep learning. See you in the next video.